Welcome to the Sci-Fi Continuum. I'm Stan, your narrator. Make sure you subscribe to our channel for more stories. The Eon Vanguard hummed with its usual buzz of activity, the faint sounds of boots against metallic floors, bursts of intercom chatter, and the occasional static crackle of energy shields. Commander Jace Andrin leaned against the console in the ship's lounge, sipping a glass of amber liquid, a synthetic whiskey that didn't quite have the bite of Earth's original. Across from him, Connor Valen, his closest colleague and the ship's tactical advisor, was engrossed in recalibrating a holo map of nearby star systems. "You know, Connor, you should really try relaxing for once," Jace teased, swirling the whiskey in his glass. "We've been running drills for weeks. The universe isn't going to implode just because you took 5 minutes off." Connor didn't look up. "Unlike you, I'm not content to rely solely on raw charisma and luck to survive. Some of us actually prepare." Jace smirked. "Charisma's gotten me pretty far, wouldn't you say?" Before Connor could respond, the intercom chimed, and a sultry, feminine voice filled the lounge. "Commanders Andrin and Valen, this is Vedra of the Thyssen delegation. I have an urgent matter to discuss. Please report to my laboratory at once." Connor raised an eyebrow. "Thyssen? Isn't that the species that—" "Green skin, violet eyes, and reputations as biogenetic geniuses?" Jace finished with a grin. "Yeah, I've heard a thing or two." "Heard a thing or two or experienced it?" Connor quipped dryly. Jace shrugged, setting his drink down. "Let's just say I'm familiar with their interest in human physiology. Come on, this sounds intriguing." The two made their way to Vedra's lab, which was tucked away in the starship's auxiliary deck. The lab's entrance glowed faintly with a pulsing blue light, and the doors hissed open as they approached. Inside, the space was as futuristic as they'd expected. Sleek white walls, hovering consoles projecting streams of data, and a series of glass tubes filled with shimmering, bioluminescent liquids. At the center of it all stood Vedra. She was striking, even by Thyssen standards. Her emerald green skin glowed faintly under the lab's lights, and her jet black hair cascaded in perfect waves down her back. Her tight black bodysuit left little to the imagination, its plunging neckline drawing Jace's immediate attention. But it was her eyes that truly captivated, brilliant violet, with flecks of silver that seemed to swirl as she moved. "Gentlemen," Vedra purred, a test tube of glowing blue liquid in one hand. Her voice was smooth and melodic, with just a hint of mischief. "Thank you for coming so promptly. I've been looking forward to meeting you." "The pleasure's ours," Jace replied, flashing his trademark grin. He extended a hand, which Vedra took, her touch lingering just a moment longer than necessary. "Jace Andrin. And this is Connor Valen." Connor nodded politely, though his posture remained stiff. "You mentioned an urgent matter?" Vedra's smile widened. "Indeed. You're aware of my species' predicament, yes?" "Something about genetic instability," Jace guessed. "I've heard rumors." "Not rumors," Vedra corrected, stepping closer. "Our genetic structure has been degrading for centuries. Without intervention, the Thyssen race will cease to exist within a few generations. But there is hope." She gestured to the glowing liquids and holographic displays around her. "Human DNA is uniquely compatible with ours. It contains the diversity and resilience we've lost. With your help, I believe we can stabilize our genome and ensure our survival." Connor frowned. "And what exactly does help entail?" Vedra's expression turned sly. "I need samples of your genetic material. Specifically, you know what." There was a beat of stunned silence before Jace burst out laughing. "Well, that's certainly one way to break the ice." Connor, however, was less amused. "You can't be serious." "Oh, but I am," Vedra replied, her tone both playful and matter-of-fact. "It contains the most viable genetic material for my experiments. And while I could extract it through conventional means, I've found that the process is far more effective when it occurs naturally." Jace raised an eyebrow, his interest clearly piqued. "Naturally?" Are you saying what I think you're saying? Vedra stepped closer, her violet eyes locking onto his. I'm saying that the most effective way to obtain your DNA is for you to mate with me, both of you. Connor's jaw tightened. This is highly unorthodox. It's also entirely voluntary, Vedra assured him. You're free to decline, but I would be most grateful if you chose to assist. Jace's grin widened. Well, I've always considered myself a bit of a humanitarian, or in this case, a Thessanitarian. Connor shot him a glare. Are you seriously considering this? Come on, Connor, Jace said, clapping a hand on his shoulder. How often do you get to save an entire species, and have fun doing it? Connor sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose. This is insane. Vedra's smile turned teasing. I'll take that as a yes. She led them to the center of the lab where a circular platform surrounded by glowing blue light awaited. The air around it shimmered faintly, as if charged with energy. This is the biodome, Vedra explained. It's a controlled environment designed to enhance genetic compatibility. It also neutralizes external factors, ensuring optimal results. Neutralizes external factors? Connor echoed warily. Such as your inhibitions, Vedra said with a wink. She stepped onto the platform, her movements fluid and graceful. Shall we begin? Jace didn't hesitate, stepping onto the platform with a confident stride. After you, Doctor. Connor hesitated for a moment longer before reluctantly following. This is going to be the weirdest mission report I've ever filed. As the three of them stood on the platform, the glowing light intensified, surrounding them in a warm, pulsating glow. Vedra's gaze flicked between the two men, her smile both mischievous and inviting. Let's see just how compatible we are, she murmured. The warm glow of the biodome surrounded them, an ethereal haze that seemed to dissolve the edges of the room into soft light. The platform beneath their feet hummed faintly, and the air buzzed with a charge that tingled against their skin. Jace stood with his trademark confidence, his grin growing wider as he took in the surreal scene. Connor, on the other hand, shifted uncomfortably, his arms crossed tightly over his chest. Vedra's smile remained enigmatic as she gestured to the hovering console. With a flick of her wrist, holographic panels burst into life around them, displaying intertwining spirals of Thyssen and human DNA. The strands danced together, shimmering and sparking in a mesmerizing display. The biodome enhances genetic resonance, Vedra explained, her voice low and smooth. It creates a feedback loop, aligning our genetic material and fostering an unparalleled connection. Think of it as fine-tuning nature's composition. Fascinating, Jace said, tilting his head. And you're saying we're the instruments? Vedra's violet eyes sparkled. Precisely. But don't worry, Commander Andrin. I'll be conducting this symphony. Connor's frown deepened. This feels less like science and more like a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, Jace interjected, clapping his colleague on the back. Lighten up, Connor. It's not every day we get to play savior to an entire species. Vedra chuckled, a sound both melodic and intoxicating. She stepped closer, her movements fluid and deliberate. Her gaze shifted to Connor, her expression softening. Commander Valen, I understand your reservations, she said gently. But I assure you, this is as much about understanding as it is about survival. Your contribution isn't just physical, it's symbolic. A bridge between our worlds. Connor's posture relaxed, albeit slightly. He glanced at Jace, who raised his eyebrows in encouragement. With a resigned sigh, he nodded. Fine, let's just get this over with. Vedra's smile widened. Excellent. The biodome's glow intensified, and the air grew warmer, almost intoxicatingly so. Vedra moved between them, her presence magnetic. She began with Jace, her fingers brushing against his jaw as she studied him with a mixture of curiosity and amusement. Your confidence is palpable, she murmured. But let's see how well it holds under scrutiny. Jace leaned into her touch, his grin unwavering. I'm an open book, Doctor. Feel free to turn the pages. Vedra laughed softly before turning her attention to Connor. She approached him more cautiously, her violet eyes searching his face. Connor met her gaze, his expression guarded but steady. "And you," she said, her tone thoughtful. "A man of discipline and restraint. I wonder, what lies beneath that armor?" Connor's jaw tightened. "I'm here for the science, that's all." Vedra's lips curved into a knowing smile. Of course. She stepped back, raising her arms as the biodome's energy swirled around them. The holographic panels flickered, displaying intricate patterns of light and color that danced across their skin. Vedra closed her eyes, her voice soft and resonant as she began an incantation-like sequence in her native tongue. The room seemed to pulse in rhythm with her words, the energy growing more intense with each passing moment. Jace and Connor exchanged a glance, their usual banter momentarily silenced by the sheer strangeness of the experience. The air around them grew heavier, charged with an almost tangible force. Vedra's eyes snapped open, now glowing faintly, and she extended her hands toward them. "Trust the process," she whispered. Jace stepped forward without hesitation, his hand brushing against hers. The moment their skin made contact, a surge of energy shot through him, leaving him breathless. He laughed, a mixture of surprise and exhilaration. "Well, that's different." Connor hesitated, but ultimately followed suit. As his hand met Vedra's, the same surge of energy coursed through him, though his reaction was more subdued. He took a deep breath, his expression unreadable. The biodome's glow reached its peak, enveloping them in a cocoon of light. Vedra's voice filled the space, a melodic harmony that seemed to resonate in their very bones. She smiled playfully and added, "A kiss can help establish better compatibility. Don't be shy. It's all in the name of science." Jace's grin widened, and without hesitation he leaned in, brushing his lips against hers with a playful, confident ease. The glow around them seemed to pulse brighter. When she turned to Connor, he hesitated, his usual reserve holding him back. But under her steady, encouraging gaze, he leaned in, his kiss tentative but genuine. Vedra's smile deepened, her voice soft as she said, "Good. Now, let us proceed to make love." The ensuing moments unfolded with a blend of intensity and intimacy as the biodome's energy amplified their connection. With every touch and shared glance, the charged atmosphere deepened, drawing them closer until words were no longer needed. Guided by the biodome's harmonious rhythms, their connection transcended the ordinary, melding science and passion into a seamless act of unity. The holographic panels shimmered, displaying the intertwining strands of their DNA, dancing in a mesmerizing display of life's possibilities. For what felt like an eternity, the three of them stood together in the center of the biodome, their forms silhouetted against the swirling light. Then, as abruptly as it had begun, the energy subsided, leaving the room quiet but charged with a sense of profound accomplishment. For what felt like an eternity, the three of them were lying in the center of the biodome, their forms silhouetted against the swirling light. Then, as abruptly as it had begun, the energy subsided. The glow faded, and the room returned to its normal state. Vedra stepped back, her cheeks flushed and her breathing slightly uneven. She studied them both with a satisfied smile. "That was most illuminating." Jace ran a hand through his hair, his grin returning. "I'll say. So, did we save your species or do we need a second round?" Connor groaned. "Please don't encourage her." Vedra chuckled, moving to the console to review the data. Her fingers danced over the controls, and the holographic panels displayed streams of information. After a moment, she nodded, her expression triumphant. "The results are promising," she announced. "Your genetic material has integrated seamlessly with our samples. This could be the breakthrough we've been searching for." Connor exhaled in relief. "Good. Then we're done here." "Not quite," Vedra said, her tone teasing. She turned to face them, her violet eyes twinkling. "There's one more thing I should mention." Jace raised an eyebrow. "Oh, here we go." Vedra's smile turned mischievous. While this experiment has been incredibly productive, I may have exaggerated the necessity of mating for the sake of the experiment. Connor's eyes narrowed. Exaggerated? How much? Well, Vedra admitted, her tone unapologetic, there were other methods I could have employed, less intimate methods. But where's the fun in that? Jace laughed, shaking his head. You're something else, Vedra. You could have just asked, you know. And missed the opportunity to study human behavior in such engaging circumstances? Vedra replied with a sly grin. I think not. Connor pinched the bridge of his nose, muttering under his breath. The metallic doors of Vedra's lab hissed open, and Jace and Connor stepped into the softly lit corridors of the Eon Vanguard. The air felt cooler, less charged compared to the biodome's surreal atmosphere. Jace adjusted his uniform, his trademark grin plastered across his face. Well, that's one for the memoirs. Jace Andron, galactic hero, Thyson heartthrob. Has a nice ring to it, don't you think? Connor shot him a withering glare. You're impossible. Come on, admit it, Jace teased. You had fun, even if you looked like you were bracing for an asteroid collision the whole time. Connor ignored him, his focus on the corridor ahead. I'll leave the fun to you. I'm more concerned about the after effects of this little escapade. Did you hear her? She didn't even need us to... Jace clapped a hand on his shoulder, interrupting him. Relax, Connor. We saved her species, earned ourselves a wild story, and got out alive. That's a win in my book. Connor muttered something under his breath, but didn't argue further. As they turned the corner, the familiar hum of the ship's lounge came into earshot. The warmth of its soft lighting and the quiet murmur of off-duty crew members provided a stark contrast to the otherworldly tension of Vedra's lab. Jace headed straight for the bar, pouring himself another glass of the synthetic whiskey. He raised it in a mock toast to Connor. To unexpected missions and the power of charm. Connor sank into a chair, shaking his head. To never doing anything like that again. Before Jace could reply, the ship's intercom crackled to life. Vedra's smooth melodic voice echoed through the lounge. Commanders Andron and Velan, I've just completed the preliminary analysis. The results are exceptional. I may need your assistance for further studies. I'll be in touch. Jace chuckled, raising his glass again. You hear that? She's not done with us yet. Connor groaned, burying his face in his hands. I need a transfer. Jace leaned back, savoring his drink with a satisfied smile. Admit it, Connor. You'll miss me. Connor peeked at him through his fingers, his expression torn between exasperation and reluctant amusement. Not in a million years. As the lounge's hum continued around them, the two men settled into their familiar dynamic. One part banter, one part camaraderie, and just enough mutual respect to keep them grounded. Somewhere in the distance, Vedra was undoubtedly plotting her next move, but for now, Jace and Connor were content to let the stars carry them onward.